all of the new features that are coming out. And one of the new features that came out last month, if you didn't see it, I want to make sure you're aware, is our new student detail reports. So these are great reports that are available to use, especially in conferences with parents or guardians to show what a student's done in ST Math and how they're progressing. And it's really easy to batch create these for a class as well. So we have lots of great info on our help site about this if you haven't seen this yet. We are working on improvements for our ST Math Immersion program for this summer. Last summer, we launched our immersion program, and many districts utilized immersion to help students master some of the critical content that they need to be successful on grade. So our immersion program is a summer school program that's 5 weeks long, and it focuses on those key content areas that students need. So in kindergarten to second grade, operations and algebraic thinking is the focus area, and in 3rd through 5th grade, fractions is the focus area. We've made improvements to this based on our first summer last year to streamline the materials and make it easier for our teachers to deliver and for administrators to support. We know that summer school already has many hurdles and many challenges, so we want to make it really easy to administer this program and make powerful math learning happen in the summer. So Callie dropped in the chat, if you weren't aware about the program, about the immersion program, you can check it out on our website on stmath.com. We're making not only, I mentioned early on the professional learning offering, we know that time is of the essence, and it is so hard to find time right now, especially this month. I'm so glad all of you found the time to join us today, but we know how hard it is to find time for professional learning with all of the challenges that you and your teachers are facing this year. And so we are looking at new modalities for our professional learning, especially quick 30-minute professional learning sessions. So this will augment and expand our professional learning offering to meet the needs. We've heard from many of our administrators the need to find ways to use smaller chunks of time and to make learning available for administrators as well. So look out for more information about this coming over the next few months, but we're really excited about this new form of professional learning. And we're also looking to provide more coaching support. So we know that implementations, given the variety of different implementation models that are needed with the pandemic, we know that this has changed up how you use ST Math, and we have new resources for coaching support as well to make sure that you have what you need to adapt in the program to the changing times. It's not just, though, in professional learning offerings that we want to support our teachers in learning about the program. Last summer, we launched some new functionality to embed in the program the facilitation process so that it's right at the hands of teachers and students when they need it. And we're expanding the library of game and level specific supports that will be in the product so that by the summer, we'll have many game-specific and level-specific facilitation tips so that students and teachers can easily see what they need to do to master and conquer the current level. And there's more and more to come on the educator-facing functionality, but I want to hand it over. As I mentioned before, we've been doing a lot of work on the curriculum and building new games and optimizing the curriculum to make every moment and every minute in ST Math more powerful for our students. And so I want to invite Kai Carew, who's our Senior Director of Interactive Learning, to come and talk about that. His team is responsible for designing all of the games in ST Math and for leveling them out in the curriculum. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kai and to jump on and share more.
All right. Give me a thumbs up if you can see me. Perfect. Hi, everyone. So as you all know, at Mind Research, we're on a mission here, and we're on a mission to ensure our students are equipped to solve the world's most challenging problems. And so in order to do that, we're constantly looking at ways to improve and further enhance the program to increase specifically the learning. So this year, we're super excited to share kind of two new areas that we're going to be enhancing this year. The first is we're actually going to have a massive amount of extended standards coverage. So a whole new suite of interactive ST models for students to experience in the curriculum. And in addition to that, we're also really been doing a lot of data analysis that's allowed us to see where the best learning gains are and are allowing us to do some real optimization to students' learning experiences. So to start with the games, there are a number of new topic areas that we're going to be addressing this year, everything from fair sharing fraction division to scalar multiplication to distributive property, getting into adding and subtracting unlike denominators, and many, many more. But rather than tell you about it, I'd actually like to start and have you all experience it for yourself. So I'm going to send out a link in the chat. So I'd like for everyone to hop into the link and go ahead and play the puzzle sequence. And as you play, there's two things I'd like you to do, two questions I'd like you to try to answer. The first question is going to be, what math topic is this puzzle sequence targeting? And then the second question will be, what do you notice about the approach to teaching this topic? So hopefully everyone's able to access the games. They're best played on Google Chrome. So if you're having any issues logging in, I recommend you use Chrome to hop in. And so if you are playing, you should see a wooden JiJi that you can move, and trying to move JiJi in order to solve puzzles here. And there's about 6 puzzles in the play sequence. So it's a example set of content that covers this game. And as you play through, so I'd actually like you now, as you're playing through, to start to type into the chat the answer to these two questions. So what math topic sequence is this targeting? So if you think you know the answer, go ahead and type that one into the chat. Actually, I think I gave this away with the link. The link actually gives the topic away just a bit, but that's okay. I'd love to keep posting your responses there. So let's see, I see a few responses come in. Is multiplying fractions times a whole number, fraction of a whole number, scalar multiplication, scalar understanding of fractional proportions. Yeah, so a lot of commentary about multiplying of a fraction. Even comments on the sequence about how having students perform it both ways. So now go ahead and type into the chat, what do you notice about the approach to teaching this topic? How might it be different or unique than perhaps you learned, in this case, scalar multiplication or multiplication of a fraction yourself, or perhaps you've experienced that teaching in the classroom? All right, so I'm seeing a few responses come in. I'm seeing that it's all visual and no rules. Yeah. Love the pictures. Yeah, so the picture helps get at the bigger concept here. It's really focused on the model and the relationship between the activities here. It's the visual. The idea of resizing JiJi is very relatable. So this idea of scaling and multiplication of scaling, of actually seeing an object resize. Yeah, so we've got the game-based elements of having a penguin and getting to resize the penguin that makes it engaging. And yeah, you get to visualize it as well. So, and for those who, I'm not sure how far through everyone got to play through, but you'll get to see, I mean, this builds into even doing something that you often don't do in the classroom, which is going to be multiple multiplications of a fraction, right? You multiply it once and then multiply it again. But because of the play sequence here, we actually allow that type of activity to become very accessible to students. So I'm going to hop, and I mean, you can keep playing if you want, but I'm going to just hop to the next slide here and highlight a few things. So this topic does come out of the area around extending understanding of multiplication and division to multiplying and dividing fractions. It's specifically focused on multiplying fractions, and is really about introducing multiplication as scaling. And you know, as you can see, the real key here, which I actually didn't see anyone comment on in the chat, is that the way that we introduce students to this concept is not through a procedure or answering a specific exact answer, but actually by estimating, right? So what students have to do is say, okay, I've got this object and it's going to be multiplied by a third, and about how much is that going to be? And then I flip it looking at 5/3. And this is where actually having two multiplications is really neat, because you can really understand that I could change the first size, reduce it by a third, and then actually multiply that by 5/3. So it's really allowing me to understand what multiplying by a fraction actually means. So through estimation, and estimation is a super powerful vehicle to getting at the conceptual understanding, right? You're not so caught up in the procedures. It allows you to really see and understand the concept, ultimately leading to the key idea, right? Which is multiplying by a number less than 1 is going to make the number smaller, and multiplying by a fraction greater than 1 is going to make the number bigger. And so we make that very accessible for students. All right, well, hope everyone had a lot of fun with our wooden JiJi here. One of the things that I'm going to do for you today is actually, this is the first time I'm actually doing this in a presentation, which is amazing. I mean, I've actually been at Mind for almost 10 years now, and part of what you all are going to get to see is something that no one's actually ever gotten to see before. So that should be really exciting. I'll start by introducing it, which is in our approach to teaching math and teaching mathematics. You know, this is a model of 4 types of play produced by an article from Scott Kim, who's a game designer. And what it shows is basically story as being one form of play, where there's no interaction, you're hearing a story. The next form would be a toy, right? So this is something you get to play with and interact with, but there's not a goal. It's basically akin to a math manipulative, if you would. The next level is going to be a puzzle, right? So a puzzle is this idea that you have a goal, and once you figure out the puzzle, you've solved the puzzle and you can move on to the next puzzle. And then the game, in his definition, and there's lots of different definitions for games or puzzles, is going to be that you actually can win, right? So this is something that you'd be playing with another person or another medium, and you can win and you can play multiple times. And so, of course, what we do at ST Math is we focus on creating puzzles. And we focus on creating puzzles and ways of engaging math with play, because math as a vehicle, I mean, essentially is just a bunch of puzzles, right? If you take math and boil it down, all we're doing is having students solve problems. They're just solving puzzles. And so if you can really capitalize on this idea of math being a puzzle and then use that as a way of play to engage students, I mean, this lends itself to the whole medium that we utilize. So there are, in our design, we're a neuroscience-driven organization and learning science-driven, and everything that we build is based on a set of principles. And so we do have, this is actually a set of 9 learning and neuroscience principles that guide the designs that we do. I'm not going to go through everything that's here because I could give a whole presentation on just that, but it's everything from having spatial temporal models to the informative feedback, to the game-based learning approach, to ensuring students are going through a mastery-driven progression. And it's these set of principles that guide the work that we do. So what I told you that I actually haven't shared this level of depth before in a presentation, we're going to give you all a sneak peek. We've been building a ton of new content, and you're going to get a sneak peek into the game design process and actually how we go about conceptualizing and building a new game. And so I'm going to use an example game to walk you through, and then I'm going to we'll show you a few of the other pieces of content that we're showing. So this is going to be some insight into the JiJi game development machine. First, an overview. So when we build content here at ST Math, we start by identifying a topic. That's going to be day 1. We then move into defining the learning outcomes, which is something that we build called a starter kit. We then go and produce what we call a game lo-fi, which is really like the core concept of a game. That leads us to then building the hi-fis and all the art assets that come with any content. It then goes into development. Then goes into QA. There's some major revisions, as well as the leveling. There's a set of leveling that occurs. Where are my other slides here? Oh, there we go. And then there's going to be an additional set of QA that gets added to the curriculum. And then there is a, it's released to students. And as you can see, it's a very long process just to get one ST Math game built. It actually ends up taking 171 working days of time. And there's a number of people involved in this process, everywhere from the curriculum designers to game designers to visual designers, to folks that go to all the developers, the QA. It's a very collaborative process. So I'm going to walk you through one of the new games that we're actually releasing this year. So we're going to look at a game example of how to teach common denominators. And so, like I said, we start by identifying the topic. In this case, we're going to focus on how do you actually teach the topic of common denominators. What our curriculum folks do is they actually build out a large set of documents that we call starter kits that basically map out everything from standards to overview and key ideas to misconceptions to learning progressions to the assessment activities, and ultimately boils down to a set of requirements that any new activity we build needs to achieve. And so this is just an example of some of the learning progressions that are part of our starter kit, where you can see their guide basically the process of starting with creating new subunits given a fraction, to guiding into what happens if you have subunits by 4, and then moving into what do you do if you have 2 different fractions with different subunits. Then we go into the game lo-fi stage. So this is where kind of the magic happens, if you will. This is where the real conceptualization of a new piece of content comes in. Now, one of the things that we do, I don't know how many folks are familiar with the term of chocolate covered broccoli. Is that, give me a thumbs up if you've heard of that term before. No? So most in the game design world, there's a whole category of games referred to as chocolate covered broccoli. And chocolate covered broccoli is basically what happens when you take a curriculum designer and you take some learning activities, and then you hand those activities to a game designer, and they create this super fun, engaging experience. But it's basically akin to, you know, taking chocolate and putting it in broccoli, right? So you're trying to take something that's of a learning nature, but you're just applying a set of extrinsic game mechanics on top of that. And so you're not really getting into the meat of actually creating real content-driven learning experiences. And so, I mean, this is what we do at ST Math, right? We develop the opposite of chocolate covered broccoli, where we start with the math and look at how do you build out from the mathematics. And we actually, in the way we structure our team, we have a role that's called an interactive learning designer, which is not just a curriculum designer and not just a game designer, but it's someone who actually develops and creates these interactive mathematical models. And that's how we achieve the types of puzzles that we do. So for example, with common denominators, one of the things, and we produce pretty high fidelity mockups that the interactive learning designers will do, is create how would I actually start to give kids access in a visual way to common denominators. So this is kind of one concept here. So I can, if I've got some scissors and I've got some blocks and I want to get, let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want to get these blocks into this monster's mouth, but I can see they're pretty big. How would I need to cut up these blocks in order to get them into the monster's mouth, right? So this idea of allowing kids to come in and cut and make it smaller. So to go from basically thirds to ninths. Then what we'll move into is showing kind of this learning progression. So the next activity would be, okay, I've got a set of halves and I've got 4 6. How am I going to turn these into 12ths? And so again, allowing the students hands-on to take these scissors and cut this half and try to turn it into 12ths, cut the 4 6, try to turn it into 12ths in order to find, again, it's all focused on finding one denominator that's going to satisfy both of these fractions. So converting both of the fractions to have the same common denominator. And then kind of the end zone of this learning progression would be, I've now got, let's say, for example, 2/3 and I've got 1/4. And I, as the student, get to choose, well, what denominator do I want to create? What size of this monster's mouth? And I'm going to create that I think I can actually cut up these individual blocks. And so this is called, again, a lo-fi, and this encapsulates the core of the idea of how you take something like common denominators and turn it into a play experience. So what happens, and then this is kind of a whole sequence that shows how you drag the scissors mechanism over and you get to cut, and eventually these little blocks would go into the monster's mouths. The next step is then bringing this to come to life. So this is where we get the visual designers and artists come in, and they come up with some crazy concepts of how you might do this, whether it's like a monster with a wooden board, or using some hay and a cow, or in this case, a brain. I think this was my favorite of these ideas. One of the designers thought it'd be fun to turn this fraction into a brain and then have this monster like a zombie eating this. We eventually went away with the brain direction and went to something that was a little bit more basic, with just having a set of wood tile here. So it's kind of like a metal sheet, and you're basically having to cut this piece of metal in order to create a denominator of this size. And what's nice about this approach is that this thing starts as just an object and then kind of turns into this monster that ends up sucking some of the tiles out. So I'm going to show you a video of what the hi-fi of this looked like. So again, this is what the artist will then put together. And so you can see how I could go in here and cut and create all these common denominators. And then this monster gets to eat all of them. Yay. And then finally, it gets into an actual live game that we can play. So I'm going to pop over and actually share. I'm not going to send this link out, but I'm just going to model for you how this would work. So you can see now this is fully interactive. What I can do is I can come here, I can drag and use the scissors. I can slice this thing however I want to slice it. If let's just say I sliced it, let's see how many these are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I want to slice this into 12. So if I cut each of these into, I've got 1, 2, 3 compartments. If I cut each into fourths, then these should now all be 12ths. So I've just created a new denominator, right? And I'm doing this all visually. And then the monster eats it. And now here's kind of the magic puzzle, and I'm jumping a few learning progressions here. Here's the magic puzzle in the sequence is I'm given, this would be 2/3. I'm also then given a half here. And how am I going to cut 2/3 and a half, and what denominator is that actually going to be? So what I can do is actually create the size of the denominator that I can then cut this 2/3 and then a half here. So go ahead and type into the chat if you think you know what size denominator we should set. Yeah, so I'm seeing some, yeah. So if we cut this into 6, okay, so we think we can create this as 6. And then if I'm gonna, or 12, yeah, so we actually have 2 options in this case, which is nice. We wanna obviously a lot of times try to provide students with different possibilities, but I'm just gonna show the 6. So here I would basically come in here and say, all right, well, in order to create 6, I'd have to cut the third, the one with 2/3 into, okay, so that'll create 6. And then similarly, I'm going to cut the half, but I'll have to cut this into 3 pieces. So if I cut the 1/2, I divide, I cut that by 3, and then I cut that into 2. So hopefully, if anyone can see, this is pretty much, I mean, this is exactly the process of how you find a common denominator. Again, it's done purely visually in a puzzle-driven format, but that core thinking that we want students to do. And then this is exactly where the common denominator comes out in use. So I'm not going to show any more. So this ramps into a symbolic sequence. I'm not going to go through that whole sequence right now. But that is pretty much how we go about making an ST Math game. And all of that then spits out into this one slide, if we even end up sharing one of these slides, because there's going to be more games than per slide of, hey, there's a new game about common denominators that kids can now play. And in this game in particular, there's new ways of interacting with the model because we want kids to get hands-on and get to cut that and all of this. So this game will be in next year's curriculum for students to play. And also, obviously can be a really awesome activity to bring into the classroom and bring up on the screen and have students think about how they're creating common denominators. I'm just going to highlight a few other games for you here really quick that are coming into next year's curriculum that we're excited about. So one area that there's a huge area of development in is going to be measurement foundations, going everywhere from indirect measurement all the way up to solving arithmetic problems. So here's an example of some of the learning progressions that are built in order to cover this. This actually ends up covering a K2 strand. So all the way from in kindergarten, having students sort, and put in a line objects from least to greatest or tallest to shortest, all the way through to measuring with units, creating rulers, all the way to really getting to students to do 1- and 2-step word problems. And we're not going to be introducing word problems in this arena in ST Math. But what we will do is build the fundamental underpinnings that allow students to understand and think through these multi-step measurement problems so that when they do encounter the word problems, they've already built up that mathematical horsepower. So here's an example of how this progression comes. Actually, this game around sorting and comparing starts in kindergarten. You work to start iterating with different units in 1st grade, and then this moves into 1st grade and 2nd grade where you're bringing out rulers and measuring in different objects. And then really, it's really in 2nd grade and actually pushes beyond where you can get into multi-step measurement problems. And just to give you all a little fun, because I like for everyone to play, I put together a play experience here that I'm going to put into the chat that's going to allow you to play through the very end part of this sequence right here. So it should be a set of puzzles that start with really 1-step problems and actually end up getting into some very, very sophisticated multi-step problems, which go actually way beyond 2nd grade. And again, as you're playing here, what you'll notice is some of the key ideas is the fact that you've got these visual models. So you've got a visual to kind of start to see how much these lengths are gonna create, but as well as you are forced to then use the numbers and have to actually solve it using the numbers here. And again, this is going to be akin to the types of word problems you would ask students around 2nd grade. But again, it's going to be a visual version of that problem so that students build that mental horsepower. So we'll see how far you get. I'll give you just a few more minutes to play. We'll see how many folks get up to. The last level in this sequence is a very challenging multi-step puzzle. You should also be able to notice that we're able to ask some very actually sophisticated questions, but because we're doing it visually, as far as, certain, in this case, these pencils being compared to other lengths of the pencils, we're actually able to get at these, what typically is a very challenging question, but we can ask them visually, which allows students to have access to these types of problems. So, all right, I'm gonna hop on and show you, and if you're having fun playing with that, you can feel free to keep playing. I'm gonna hop on and show you a few other things. So one of the other areas that we've been pushing on, and I'm not going to send this out, but I'll share this, is adding creative modeling mode. So we're adding a whole number of new ways of interacting. And in this sequence, so this is actually, let me pull this up here. This is going to be a third grade sequence. So this is going to be introducing students to distributive property. So of course, the way we introduce students to distributive property is through fruit. And we start by sticking the fruit in these different bags, and you can't see every single bag. So you have to infer, well, how many multiples of these bags are there? So I'm going to see there's going to be 6 apples and 9 strawberries. And then, of course, we'll move to the symbolic. So, of course, the 5 represents 5 apples. The 3 represents the 3 strawberries. And then there's 2. Well, what does this 2 group mean? It probably means there's 2 groups of each of these. So now I'm going to create 10 and 6. And for those who have tried to tackle teaching students distributive property in 3rd grade, it's not an easy concept for 3rd graders to learn. We then move to the mathematical symbolic form. So again, 2 times 5 plus 3 means there's going to be 2 times 5, which will give me 10 strawberries, and 2 times 3, which is going to give me 6. So again, transitioning students to this type of form, which we've done here in this sequence in only 3, literally 3 puzzle sequence. And then one of the things that's really neat is that we actually have a mode where students can actually now come in and build these situations for themselves. So I can go ahead and build some bags of fruit. If I bring out another bag, it actually replicates the amount of fruit that the first bag had. So if I add strawberries to this one, I can see the strawberries also being added to this other bag, which is pretty much exactly the definition of what distribution means. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, there's going to be 3 of these bags. Let me drag that here. Yay. All right, so all of these games, you all saw 3 from this list. So all of these games, 3, there's actually in total 40 new games that are going to be introduced to the ST Math curriculum this year. So we're super excited about this. Lots of new exciting content. The one other area that I want to talk about today that is also coming is we've also been doing a lot of work on optimizing the curriculum. So we're constantly looking at how do we make sure that students experience the most powerful spatial temporal math games for their grade and optimize students' learning time. And we've been doing a number of analyses. We've done tons of analysis over the years, and we've been doing additional analysis this last year. So this is just an example of where we're actually able to take hundreds of thousands of students' records and across millions of quasi experiments that actually look at the impact of individual LOs on the state test scores. We're actually able to see the impact of every single learning objective in the student experience. Not only that, but we also have an analysis where we look at, you're able to see the pre-post quiz scores, the time, the any flags of difficult or easy content. And based on all of that data, we've put a super large focus. In addition to, one of the things we also incorporate is from a curricular design standpoint, we've got a key set of principles for how we order the curriculum. So in terms of the priority of content that students experience, we're focused on giving students the topics of major focus as a high priority. We spiral the content. We respect all the content dependencies. And we also build, really prioritize the areas where there's good utilization of powerful spatial temporal models within the mathematics. And so all of this information goes into upgrading our curriculum experience, which this year you are going to see a streamlined experience. So we were actually able to streamline and reduce the curriculum, actually pull out about 20% as we're including new games, basically just by optimizing that student learning experience so that more students can experience more puzzles and more content throughout the program. In addition to that, as I shared, there's the updated default journey sequence so that all the content that students are experiencing by default is focused on the major focus content. And then one of the last things we've done is, because we've streamlined the curriculum, we really want to allow for students that are early finishers of that core journey to have really awesome, meaty content in the bonus journey. And so there's actually 2 additional things that are coming out this year. The first one is we're going to be introducing for the first time what we call a math challenge content. So this is going to be obviously our content in ST Math is very challenging already, but there are certain games and activities that are just not appropriate for the grade level journey, such as, for example, that multi-step measurement problem that you all got to experience. However, those are phenomenal problems, especially for the advanced students to experience. And so we're adding a new math challenge objective. It'll go before the current challenge objective in every journey for the K5 experience. And this will include content from the next grade. It'll include content from that grade that it'll build on, and it's all going to be mixed together. So all types of content from measurement to fractions to addition and subtraction, all within one objective. And then the last thing that we're also reintroducing is we actually have a set of cognitive training activities that we're a neuroscience-driven organization, and we've explored the vein of cognitive training, and we've got some really cool, really fun cognitive training games for students to play. And this set of games will actually be in an objective in the bonus journey as well. So with all of this, we are excited to say that this will allow us as a organization and as a collective to blast off into the most powerful year of math learning we have yet to see for ST Math. That's all I have for you all today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think we're going to open up for questions with the remaining time. So if anyone has questions for either myself or Matt, please go ahead and type them into the chat. And if you don't, thank you very much for your time today.
Kai, one of our educators asked if the bonus journey are only for K5.
Yes, so the bonus journey is available for students of all grades. So it's MSS as well as K5. Every grade level has a bonus journey. In middle school, there's already actually a set of it's a summer bridge content that's kind of a consolidated set of content that almost is a pseudo math challenge content. And so that's what students will do in MSS, whereas in the K5, that's part of what we're adding for this year. Glad you enjoyed seeing the behind the scenes. There is so much work that goes into the development of just one ST Math game engine. I mean, if folks had, hopefully now you do have an idea, but there's a reason why it's taken us as an organization, 20 years to get to the point where we are now. It's to get the massive content that we have, it takes a long time to get that amount of quality content. So I'm glad you enjoyed that.
All right, fantastic. Thank you to Matt, and thank you to Kai. For those of you, please, if you could share with us what's your favorite feature, what's your favorite new feature that you see coming up. Tag us on social media at ST Math on Instagram or Twitter. That would be fantastic if you could do that. And please stick around for our closing keynote. The fantastic Tawny Young will be our closing keynote, so you can find her over there next on your agenda. So if there's any other questions, feel free to share them. But other than that, thank you to both of you for your presentation.